While sometimes a straight ahead 1-4-5 blues is the perfect solution for a given musical moment, there are other times you might find yourself looking for a little more sophisticated harmony. Today, I'm going to help you up your rhythm guitar game by showing you 3 levels of adding jazz harmony to a basic 1-4-5 blues progression. We're going to go through 3 levels of increasing creativity, let's not call it difficulty, and as a bonus, I'm going to toss in a great sounding turnaround. Now, while my videos usually focus on improvising and soloing, here's the thing. Upping your chord vocabulary will help you develop your ears, and these more colorful chord changes will bring into play other harmonic possibilities for your soloing. I'll also be doing a video on how to solo over these new changes that we introduced today. As always, if you have questions or you want materials from today's lesson, you can email me at stlouisguitarlessons@aol.com. Now let's get into some sounds. First part of our level 1 idea is to take the 3 basic chords of a 1-4-5 progression, which are typically 3 dominant 7th chords, and approach them from either a half step above or a half step below to add a little chromatic movement to the progression. The second part of the idea is to substitute 9th chords for our standard dominant 7ths. Now today we're going to be playing a quick change blues in G. All that means is that instead of sitting on the 1 chord for the first 4 bars, we're going to go to the 4 chord in the 2nd bar. We're going to go back to the 1 chord in the 3rd bar and carry on from there like a standard 12-bar blues. Let's start off with our 3 standard dominant 7th voicings. We've got G7 at the 3rd fret, C7 at the 3rd fret, and D7 at the 5th fret. Now, if we only play the chords dead on each time, it can sound really dull and mechanical, like this. Let's run through 12 bars, and what I'm going to do is approach each chord from a half a step below. Let's see what that sounds like. To my ears, that was far more interesting and musical. Let's move on to the second part of level 1. We're going to sub in those 9th chords for our dominant 7ths. Now the first chord is G9, which is at the 2nd fret, this voicing. Now you sharp-eyed viewers might recognize that as B minor 7 flat 5. It's a rootless G9, but it's also the same notes as B minor 7 flat 5. We could add a G on the top of the voicing. We could also add a G on the bottom of the voicing. But I really dig that rootless voicing. I got that from watching Robin Ford, and if it's good enough for Robin, it's sure good enough for me. We've also got C9 at the 3rd fret. D9 would be 2 frets up from that, or a whole step. Now in this next 12 bars, I'm going to use 9th chords, and I'm going to approach them randomly, sometimes from below, sometimes from above. We're going to mix it up. Let's see what that sounds like. For level 2, we're going to add diminished 7th chords when we move from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, or from the 4 chord back to the 1 chord. Going from the 1 to the 4, we're going to use G sharp diminished, moving into our C9. So our G9 was at the 2nd fret. G sharp diminished, we're going to play it on the top 4 strings at the 3rd fret. Back to our C9. From the C9 back to the 1 chord, we're going to play C9, C sharp diminished at the 2nd fret, and then back to our G9. Now there are several places we can utilize this substitution, starting with the 4 chord back to the 1 chord in our quick change. So we'd start out. Now we're at the end of the 4th bar, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, so we would use G sharp diminished, moving into the C9. We're going back to the 1 chord, so we'd hit the C sharp, go back to our G9. The last place we would use it is in our turnaround, when we're going from the 5 chord to the 4 chord back to the 1, we'd use it again, sound like this. Let's run through our 12-bar progression, now all slicked up with some diminished goodness. Leveling up to number 3, we're going to add in the very common jazz device, the 2-5-1 progression, in a couple of places. This device just adds more musical content, more harmonic possibilities. This device consists of a minor 2 chord and a 5-7 chord resolving to a 1 chord. Now very often in jazz, that 5-7 would be some sort of an altered dominant, but we're going to keep it simple today and just use a dominant 7. Now the first place we're going to add it is in the 4th bar. So in the 4th bar, we're still playing the 1 chord, and we're about to resolve to the 4 chord. When in this case, the 4 chord is C. The 2 chord of C would be D minor. We're going to use D minor 7. And the 5 chord of C would be a G7. And then we would resolve to our C, or C9 in this case. It sounds like this. The next spot we're going to use a 2-5 is in bars 9 and 10. Now we're going to replace what would be the 5 chord going to the 4 chord with a 2-5-1 leading back to our 1 chord, or our G9. So the 2 of G is A minor. We're going to use A minor 7. The 5 chord of G would be D, and we're going to alter a little bit, and we're going to use a D7 with a flat 9. Bar 8 would typically be the 2nd bar of our 1 chord, but we're going to play an E7 plus 9. So now bars 7 and 8 would sound like this. Then we're going to go to A minor 7 bar 9. We've got our D7 with our flat 9 in bar 10, which leads us back to our 1 chord. But instead of going back to the 1 chord, we're going to use 2 2-5-1s in our turnaround. So we're actually going to go up to B minor 7 and E7 plus 9, or we could do flat 9 in bar 11, followed by our A minor 7, and we could again do D7 with a plus 9 or flat 9 in bar 12. Back to our 1. So those last few bars would sound like this. Here it is, up speed over backing track. Check it out. lastly, here's a little bonus for an alternative in the turnaround. In the 12th bar, I like to use the chord voicings A minor 11, which is at the 3rd and 5th fret, followed by a D7 flat 5, going back to our 1 chord. So if we pair that with the B minor 7 and an E7 flat 9, followed by the A minor 11, D7 flat 5, we get some really cool downward voice leading. With the B minor 7 going to the E7 with a flat 9, you get a downward movement on the B and D strings. With the A minor 11, D7 flat 5, you get downward movement on the D and low E, going back to that 1 chord. Pretty cool. Put it all together, sounds like this. Now, we just scratched the surface today. I hope that gets you going with some uptown sounds for your blues rhythm playing. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You keep practicing. I'm going to keep putting out content that's going to help you make sense of souling. See you soon.